This is the Every.Thing.After podcast. I'm Rob. I'm here with my friend Angela and my wife Christy, and we're going to talk a little bit about summer TV. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hello. It's summer. Where did the year go?
Can you believe it? It's summer already. Summer 2025. It's wild.
We're almost halfway through the year. It's crazy.
You know, they say that, you know, once you hit Memorial Day, it's like next thing you know, it's Christmas. So,
Right.
whoosh.
Geez, don't say that. Wow. I'm not ready for that. I don't know. This has been a weird one because I was talking to other people like earlier in the year, and it was like one of those things where like you hit January and then like February was like the slowest month of the year. Like February seemed to be like 3 months.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the spring was like gone in the blink of an eye. And then here we are in summer. Like we get like, we don't get enough spring. We don't get enough fall anymore.
Yes, I agree. Who do we talk to change that?
Oh, I wish I knew. I'd be on the phone right now giving him my get off my lawn old man speech.
Oh.
Give me my summer. Give me my spring back. Oh, but do we have time to watch summer TV? There's a lot of summer TV coming out. And you know what? I remember I thought about doing this podcast because I'm not the only old guy in the room, but I remember when summer TV used to really suck, Angela.
Well, I think it depends on how you look at it. Because back in, here I go, back in the day, is that, you know, the TV season was September to May.
Yeah.
And I know this is going to be hard for some people listening to believe, there weren't recording devices and there wasn't streaming. So if you missed an episode of your favorite show, you just told yourself, well, I'll catch it in reruns. Mm-hmm. Or if you had something else going on that day and you're like, I'll catch it in reruns. And so then you waited until it came around again in the summer and you got to watch it. And so, and like for me, I remember when I was a kid, I was a big Dallas fan. And I know soap operas, everyone's shocked, but, I was a big Dallas fan. And so I would watch Dallas during the fall and then I'd catch up on Miami Vice during the summer because they were on at the same time.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I mean, and interestingly, you know, there were some shows that actually, you know, because people were able to catch it in reruns because they didn't see it during the fall, that helped the show. So even though it was reruns to some people, it was new to others. Friends is a perfect example. Mm-hmm. So, they moved it into a different time slot, and so people started watching it. They got hooked on it, and so by the time Friends came back for the second season, it was really starting to become the phenomenon that it was. So, you know, whether but you're right in the fact that it was, you know, there wasn't anything new and exciting. There wasn't, you know, the only thing that you might see new is that occasionally the networks would throw out, like if they didn't pick up a pilot and they would throw out this random one-off show and you'd watch it and go, oh man, I see why they didn't pick that up. Or you might say, oh gee, I wish they did.
Right.
Or there's shows that, they weren't really sure what to do with, and so they just kind of threw it off in summer. A classic example of that is a little show called The Seinfeld Chronicles, which actually premiered in the summer, 4 episodes. I remember I watched them and thought, oh, okay, well, this show is okay because NBC didn't really know what to do with it. And then, of course, the Seinfeld Chronicles became Seinfeld, and
wow.
the rest is history. But yeah, it actually premiered in July in the middle of the summer because NBC, you know, they had picked it up, but it was like, okay, well, we're not really sure what we're doing with this. Huh. And so, yeah, so
that's
yeah, so like, and
I did not know that.
No.
That's really interesting.
Well, and if you go back and watch those early episodes, which I actually had the chance to recently because my husband's a big fan and he's got it on all hours of the day, and wow, those episodes are rough.
Yeah.
I mean, they are rough. So it's like, okay, you
Yeah.
understand why NBC kind of just burned it off during the summer. But it had enough champions, and it caught on, and so
Right.
so even in the middle of that that repeat wasteland, there was something new that people latched onto, and it became a major hit.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I tried to get my son into Seinfeld a while back, and by watching some early episodes, and I remember watching not the Seinfeld Chronicles, not the ones you're talking about, but that first season even really didn't find its footing for some time. Like, it wasn't really funny the first couple episodes. And I remember watching the one with him and saying, it gets better. It gets a lot better. You just gotta give it a chance.
I feel the same way about Friends. I can't watch those. I mean, they're on and I'll watch, but it's like, nah, no.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's really interesting, though. Seinfeld became such a huge hit and started as a summer show. That's great history.
Yeah.
I just remember like summer being, for me as a like young and growing up, summer was when like you just, I guess, or more recently, people remember it as sort of, it's a rerun season. It's sort of reality TV, that kind of thing. You get like the Big Brothers and things like that. Typically they're running in the summer. But not a whole lot of new original programming. And we really seem to have like just abandoned that trend altogether with streaming now, because they're just making prime content all year round. And there's upsides and downsides to that, because there's just so much content. I can't keep up. And like you said, like I might even welcome a rerun summer at this point, because there's so many shows that I haven't caught up on yet. I just saw in this list of shows that are coming out this summer that they're releasing a Squid Game 3. I haven't watched Squid Game 2 yet. I haven't seen the second season yet. It's just coming too fast.
No, you're absolutely right. And I would go back to, if you're like, okay, when did the people listening wondering, okay, when did the change come? Did it come with streaming? What happened? And I would go back to this date in TV history, May 31st, 2000. And that was the date that CBS dropped a show that none of us had ever seen anything like it before, a little show called Survivor.
Yeah.
It is not overstating it whatsoever to say that Survivor changed the face of television forever.
Yeah.
I mean, it totally did. And I remember hearing the concept of Survivor. I mean, season 50 this fall, which is crazy.
Wow.
And,
really?
And I remember, I remember hearing the concept when it first came out, and I remember laughing like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. We're going to watch these people on an island and what? And I think that, it was something so, and remember during this time, it was still reruns. You didn't have streaming. And so I think it was something so different and so fresh, dropped right in the middle of summer when, people weren't expecting it, and it became, the legendary show that it is. And so it told the networks two things. It was like, okay, people are interested in this kind of content, this reality competition, which was something we hadn't really seen before that time.
Right.
And it also told them, you know what, maybe we can program some stuff for summer. And really that is the day, of course, obviously, a little after that, after Survivor became popular and they realized it worked. But you can really look back to the change of summer television, right back to that date.
Wow.
That's so interesting.
The other thing that puts a exclamation point on is that you said season 50. It started 25 years ago. So they've made 50 seasons in half the number of years. And so that just shows you right there. Like, it's just, it just all comes out too fast. There's way too much of it for anyone to keep up, it seems like.
Wow.
Yeah, and because first it was Survivor, and then and then 2 years later the behemoth that was American Idol, which was again was another summer show. But then eventually the networks went, okay, it's great for summer, but yeah, we could make more money and get more viewers if we moved them into the regular season. And
Yeah.
so Survivor and American Idol, those things, moved into I remember when Fox moved American Idol into the fall. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
That they were going to give, 2 nights a week of their, sometimes 3 nights a week of their primetime schedule to this one show. That was a big deal. But so then it was like, okay, we move those shows. What replaces them? And so that's when you got your things like America's Got Talent, which is pretty much an exclusively, summer show. And then, you've got I know you've used the expression, reality TV wasteland.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of that. But what we also had, as you probably remember, is you had the basic cable networks like TNT, especially TNT, TBS. Then they sort of started getting into it, and they were like, okay, broadcast networks, you can have September to May, but then we're going to jump in the summer. And that's when you got shows like The Closer, and later, like Rizzoli and Isles, and all of those dramas that popped in. And so then that was sort of the counter programming. And then there was sort of this movement of, you know what, broadcast networks, you don't get to play by yourselves anymore. And so then, they started, scattering it, all over the place too. And then, streaming.
And then streaming.
And like you said, there are just, the list that you were talking about, 35 shows that you're, looking forward to seeing. And it's like, 35 shows. When am I?
Right.
That's
right.
true.
And this isn't everything. This is just like the 35 you can't miss. And how can we do it?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to miss one or two out of 35. Surely, it's summer. We would like, and the point being is that, why didn't the broadcast networks program during the summer? Because that is supposed to be the time when people are out doing things, and you're at the beach and with your family and whatever.
Right.
And I think that has changed quite a bit too. And I think that streaming has realized that it's that, families can still get together and do things, but how about they sit in front of the TV and watch something?
Well, part of that too is that like the people are not stopping vacations. They're still taking vacations, but the portability of entertainment anymore, you can take your TV with you. You can watch your TV shows on your phone, like the streaming networks. You can sign into your network or your Netflix account from any TV in any hotel in the country or in the world, so it's not like you can you can't even get away from it anymore.
That's an excellent point. And not only, watching it in the hotels or the cabins or wherever you are, but people watching in the car, hopefully not the people driving, but other people watching in the car, and the entertainment, and so they're starting to there are big shows coming out this summer, like you said, Squid Game and some of the others that are dropping seasons, and it's like, that would have been unheard of, back in the day to drop such a major show in the middle of the summer. But, the idea of year-round programming is that programming can't stop. And that's really a new concept that we've only seen, in the last, 10 years or so, or even less.
You know what? The same person I'm going to call about getting our springs and falls back, I'm going to call and say, hey, we need a rerun season again. We need a time when everything just stops. People stop making content. Everything just slows down so the rest of us can catch up. Because there's so many shows we can't keep up with this just constant stream of content coming out. There's 5 or 6 shows I could rattle off the top of my head right now that I have to watch before I watch any of this new stuff that's coming out this summer.
I agree. Like I said, sometimes you didn't mind rerun season, because it did give you a chance to catch up on something that you weren't able to see before. And also what it does too is for the shows is it shortens their lifespan. I gave you the example of Friends, and so it caught on in reruns, and it's like, okay, without reruns, it's like the shows, they got to perform between between September and May, oftentimes way shorter than that. And so that in today's world, would you have had a Friends or a Cheers? Or a show that or a Hill Street Blues, and I'm naming all of these shows. People are like, "What is that?" But shows that ended up having longevity because they were able to catch on in reruns, and people were able to hear word of mouth of like, "Oh, you got to watch that." And, so it really shortened, it really ups the expectations. I mean, you gotta be good right out of, you gotta be good right out of the gate these days, or you lose your opportunity sometimes.
That's true. You can't have a really bad first season anymore. It seems like the expectations are so high. I think you give a show maybe three episodes to be really good, and then people give up on it, I think, if it's not. Yeah. Hey, Chris, you might have a different perspective, but like growing up in Canada, do you remember summer TV at all? Was there anything that you watched or remember watching in the summer, or was that a case of our winters are so bad whenever it's above freezing, we got to get outside?
Yeah, we just stay out and soak up the sun. No, it's funny. I was trying to think how old I was, because I remember there was one summer that I caught up on Cheers and Night Court. And it was like every evening, like it just followed each other, and I watched all these old like Cheers and Night Courts on my own. Yeah, we did the same thing. Just watch reruns.
Watch the reruns.
Yeah.
Well, and in Cheers and Night Court are both excellent examples. Those were not shows that performed well out of the gate, and they needed that. They needed to catch on in reruns. They needed people to, because if people talked about it and say, "Oh, you should have seen that," then people catch the rerun so they could see what it was everybody was talking about. Because you didn't have, again, here I go dating myself. You didn't have YouTube where you could just go back and watch the clip and all of that. But yeah, it was such a, now obviously if you miss an episode, you just go to whatever that streaming service is and you watch it. But is it really the same that way? I don't, it's maybe it's that, again, now I'm sounding like the get off my lawn person, but maybe it was that simpler, almost like a simpler time, that it wasn't like, and what that's also done too, guys, is that we've lost that appointment viewing that we used to have, that it's like, okay, at, like I gave the example of Dallas. Friday night at 9, you watched Dallas, and everybody watched Dallas. And if you didn't watch it Friday night at 9, well, then you missed what happened, and somebody was going to spoil it for you.
Right.
And
that communal experience is gone for the most part.
And now it's like, okay, well, if I miss, Chicago Med or whatever, well, that's okay. I'll watch it on Peacock tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then you just, try and stay off social media so that nobody spoils it for you.
That's what happens. That's exactly what happens. But you know what? Some of the streamers and stuff are trying to get that, some of that communal experience back. They're doing some event type programming where they release it at a certain time, and they expect everyone to kind of watch it on release date or at release time and things like that. I'm not sure how successful it's been. I think there are some shows that people have to watch the minute they drop, and there are fans that do that and react to it in live fashion, maybe on a podcast or on Twitter, or whatever social media you're on. So you get a little bit of that communal experience, but it's not like it was back in the day. We could talk, and that's where we're back in the day people. We are old people, guys. We talk about stuff back in the day. These young people listen to this. We say it time and again on the show. You are so spoiled. You have no idea what we had to go through to watch TV back in the day.
But we still miss missed that. We missed that back in the day stuff. I was just thinking, the TV Guide, did it have a little R or something next to it so you knew it was a rerun?
Yeah.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I just missed the little TV Guide, but that's a whole other back in the day.
I know, because you would highlight what you wanted to watch, and you would talk to other family members. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, now it's almost impossible to find TV Guide in the grocery stores. It's like, what in the world? I mean, I have to read mine on my Kindle. It's like, what?
Oh.
Yep. Oh man. I don't know. I remember, and that it was always a thing too, because working in newspapers, you'd run the TV listings in the newspaper, and that was always a thing. And people would call, and the TV listings have run the print's too small. Newspapers were downsizing. They'd run the TV print smaller or something, or they wouldn't have the book in the weekend. And I just remember going through that whole phase where like people even in an older generation than ours were really resisting that kind of switch, that as things were going away from, as things were switching to more, there were more shows, more networks, more options and things like that. Those TV guides started to go away, and people that had relied on them all their lives, were really missing them.
Well, and I mean, and now because there's so many options, it's like there can't be unfortunately, there can't be just one magazine that covers it all. And so, you've got TV Guide, and then they have like a streaming magazine that just focuses on streaming. It's just because there's so, there's so many options. It's one of the reasons why, I gave up being a TV columnist. It's like, like we talk about 35 shows you can't miss in the summer. I have a regular job. I'm going to tell you. No, I mean, because you're talking, like you said, that's not all of them. That's just, it just gets to be, so much. I mean, back in the, I missed, as it started to evolve in reality, my thing was, okay, so I watched broadcast TV during the year, and then the summer belonged to Bravo.
Yeah.
And then there you go. That was which, Project Runway is gonna make its way back this year. I saw streaming, and without Tim Gunn, so I'm not sure it counts, but there you go.
Oh.
Yeah, that seems like an asterisk, like just waiting to happen. Like, can you even call it the same thing if you don't have Tim Gunn involved?
Exactly. Now Christian Siriano is going to be there, and I'm a big fan of his. I rooted for him to win his season. But yeah, if you don't have Heidi Klum's back, but if you don't have, I believe it's on Hulu and Disney Plus is where Project Runway is going to be this summer. So if you're a Project Runway fan, that's where that's going to be.
There is just so much TV, and the problem with it is too, like is that it's all kind of like better too than it used to be. Like we got so much more like tier A, like top tier like television now. Whereas before, like and to each their own. Some people like, a certain thing on television, and it may not be at a higher standard or whatever that other people might have for it, and that's okay and everything. But you know what I mean? Like they used to be able to make like you said, they kind of would release some stuff that maybe like they kind of dust off the shelf or whatever, like pull out of the dustbin or something and put out there for summer because they didn't want to spend the money on it.
Right.
And so you weren't expecting like to get like a lot of the really like, and now though, you have like A-list actors in some of these series, and some of the stuff is coming out in the summer, and it's coming out all the time. I want to kind of go through some of these shows and just kind of get from the two of you like a thumbs up or thumbs down on whether or not you think it's interesting or not. Because there's a lot of really interesting stuff. So I've gone on record as I'm kind of hot and cold on reality TV. Like I went through a period, I think during COVID, I think probably everybody did, where like just getting a sense of reality, even the fake reality. I welcomed it for a little bit.
Yeah.
We watched reality TV reruns just to kind of get a sense of like what people, could do without masks and things like that, just to try to feel like we were somewhat normal. So we got into some Big Brother and stuff like that, but I typically don't get into a lot of reality TV.
Yeah.
But there's a season 7 coming out of Love Island. Did you ever watch that one?
See, I know season 7. Does that not? That boggles the mind. I did not watch season 1 through 6, but clearly you don't hit season 7 if somebody's not watching it. So
right. I remember hearing about that when it came out. I can't believe we're at season 7. So it's just a show basically, right, where contestants go on and decide if they want to sleep with each other or something on this island. Is that basically what it is? That's
my understanding. But it's gone streaming, which is I want to say it started out on USA or one of the other NBC Universal networks, and so it's gone streaming, and they're going to drop episodes every night, which is kind of a revolutionary thing for streaming. You don't generally see new content every day, but Peacock's
every
already
night.
Yeah, Peacock has already set the bar with that when they got Days of Our Lives, and so they know that they're able to put out new episodes every day. So why not put out new episodes every day of Love Island?
Is it going to be like? That's really interesting. It's not. I'm not presuming it's not basically like live. It's not content that was recorded that day that they're putting out every day. Is it, Angela, or am I wrong?
I mean, I would, again, not having watched it, but I would presume it's a Big Brother thing. You know how they have like all the extra content and whatever. Okay. So, and maybe you're going to follow a different person or a different couple every night.
Every night for what? For how long? Know. For the whole summer? For 3 months?
Episodes every night, 6 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific. So wow. You'll get to see all of the, all of the drama.
Yeah. Angela, how long until we get an actual Truman Show on TV? Is that almost that? Like just a date, just a constant, like 24/7 camera on a group of people or a person?
It's amazing that you bring up that movie, because wow, was that movie so far ahead of its time.
It really was.
I mean, it's one of my favorites. It's a great movie, and but when you were watching it the first time, you're like, come on.
Yeah.
And you're right. We're almost very much living in that, where where everything's, there's a camera 24/7, everything's sponsored.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the shows that, like Jury Duty, where everybody's in on the joke except the star. And
I watched that, yeah.
And those are, so that's kind of, that's kind of what we're seeing. So yeah, that was one of those very prescient movies where you're like, oh, okay. Now, I still love the movie, but it's not as funny anymore.
Right.
Yeah, too close to reality.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. Who knows, really? Do you know, Angela, if you have a TV camera on you 24/7? Can you be absolutely sure that you're not being broadcast right now at this very moment?
Listen, if somebody is watching my life, they are really bored out of their mind. I can recommend so many other things they could be watching that would be, if they want to sit on their couch and watch me watch Days of Our Lives, have at it. But other than that, or play with my cat, you're right ahead.
Here's the thing though. If like you feel like some characters being introduced into your life to kind of spice it up, like in the Truman Show, like when things would start to get like slow or stale, they just like hire another actor to like come in and like do something crazy or something, or create some drama. And if someone like just enters your life that you feel like is there just to add drama, can you really be sure that this person hasn't just been cast to like for like sweeps week or something like that in your reality TV show of a life?
Wow. Okay, that's very meta. I don't even know what to do with that. You've totally made me think of my life very differently. So
you're thinking like that person that I just met at work seems a little like wacky, like off the wall, like I like not in a natural sense either. Like maybe that's what's happened here. I think I saw them in that jury duty show that I watched. Everyone's an actor. We're all just the world's a stage, and we're all just actors in it. So
there you go.
All right, Chris, give your verdict. Love Island season 7.
No, I won't.
No.
But I'm now interested, since Angela mentioned Project Runway. I haven't seen it for years, but I'm kind of interested in seeing that now.
Yeah. That's not on this list. It's not on the 35 must-see shows of summer, but that's another one. Okay.
Back in the day, Christy, man, that was the drama. That was the reality show drama. You had the what was her, Wendy or whatever. That was one of the shows that Survivor set the model for so many things, but Survivor really set the model for that. Villain. You had Richard Hatch, and he was the original reality show villain. And then so Project Runway, they had their villain. It was like, you're like, what are you talking about? They made clothes. Yes, but there was a villain. in that, I mean, you probably remember in that first season of Project Runway, there was a villain, and it just, that show was something fresh and new that you hadn't seen. It was like, here's a pile of newspapers, go make a couture dress. And it's like, and it was like, and I'm like, I have no idea what y'all are talking about, because I'm not, no one's ever accused me of being a fashionista, but it's like Top Chef. I have no idea what you all are making,
right?
Yeah.
But I love watching you make it.
Well, that was the thing about Chopped that I liked, because Chopped, sometimes that's the one where you open the basket and like they don't know what they've got, and then they have to make something out of that. That one was always intriguing, and like half the stuff they make, maybe more than half the stuff that they make, I would never eat in my life, but because I'm a picky eater. But I have to issue a correction. I'm wrong. This list that I'm looking at, this is a list that we're looking at from the Wrap, does include Project Runway, so please accept my apologies.
That's okay. There's some long-running reality shows. Is it common? Because I think you and I, Robert, will just, like, for years we won't watch it, and then we'll just drop back and maybe watch an old episode, like Amazing Race or something. Mm-hmm. Or we used to watch So You Think You Can Dance a lot, and then got away from that. But sometimes you just, like things, like you said, Top Chef, and I think Project Runway, there's some things, you can miss it for several seasons, and then just, it's kind of cool. You can drop back in on old seasons. Yeah,
because most of the time it's like a completely new group of people, and sometimes they're bringing people back. There are these people that there are people that are like professional reality TV people by this point. Like they try to appear on as many of them as they can, right? Angela, have you seen these ones that kind of hop from one show to the next? So
interestingly, season 50 of Survivor, going back to Survivor because everything stems from Survivor, is going to be an all-star season. And Mike White, the creator of White Lotus, is going back on to Survivor. And he's the one that everybody's talking about. And I saw, there's somebody
he's going to be one of the survivors, one of the contestants.
Yes.
Because he did it before, and there was some after amid all the White Lotus talk, there were a lot of memes I know of like showing him on the island and saying it makes sense that this is the guy that created White Lotus.
Well, he is going back. I think there's somebody from season 1 that's going to go back, and so but you're right. A lot of these reality shows, like House of Villains on E, it's like. They bring like how many reality shows has Omarosa been on? I mean, really? Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right.
She was on the worst one too. I think it was called White House or something like that.
Oh my God.
Exactly. But you're absolutely right. There are people that, they've almost become these, they're celebrities because of, what they've done in the reality show. And so they just keep showing up on these shows. I will tell you, Christy, that apparently Project Runway, I haven't heard what it is, but apparently Project Runway is shaking it up a little bit. There's going to be some twists this year.
Oh.
So
I'll have to check it out.
Surprises in store. So another one that's on this list is Bachelor in Paradise Season 10. Another reality show on this one. That's not just The Bachelor, right? Or is it part of the Bachelor universe, I guess? But Bachelor in Paradise is different than The Bachelor and The Bachelorette and Golden Bachelor and Golden Bachelorette and all those things.
So I believe Bachelor in Paradise is, and people will probably scream at me for not knowing, is I think Bachelor in Paradise is they drop some of the past people from the other shows into Paradise.
Yeah.
And see what the
is
thing
basically is Love Island.
exactly but with people that you know from The Bachelor, but those shows keep going on because we, a couple of reasons. I think that people want to believe. I think people really want to see love stories. I think they want to believe in true love. Now, how true love, obviously, that is another thing.
That's a really sweet interpretation of that. I was going to say that they just love garbage TV, but you know what? Let's go with your reasoning there and say that people just really long for love and true love and seeing love stories play out. I like that better.
Well, you're right. Probably the majority of people, they love to watch the backstabbing and the so forth. I mean, it's the same reason that that I used to be hooked on all the Housewives shows and I finally broke myself of that. But I do think that with the Bachelor shows, there is that element of, when you meet these people, some of them, like the Bachelor, the Bachelorette, you really like them and you want them to be happy, especially if they got rejected on a previous season, because that's generally how it works. And so if the Bachelorette, if this woman got rejected by a guy and you feel so bad for her and you're like, man, I want her to be happy. And then she shows up at the Bachelorette, you're like, oh, I want her to be happy. And so you really are rooting for her to find someone. I think there is a genuineness to that fandom to a certain extent. But yes, it can be good garbage TV.
Okay, I will grant you some of that, but I have to kind of challenge a little bit because I don't know this for sure, but I'm interested, and you probably have better knowledge of this or statistics than I do, but how many of these relationships actually do work out? Should we be, if we want happiness for these people, should we just be wishing that they weren't on these shows at all? Because they don't work out very often, do they?
That's it. That's an excellent point. I think the gold standard would be Trisha and Ryan, which would be very, very early on in the franchise. She actually just competed on Special Forces. Had to leave very early. Talk about reality. That show's insane. But anyway, but you're absolutely right. I think you could count on one hand. If even that, you may not even need all 5 fingers to determine but yeah, they're really the gold standard. And it's funny because that was the one and only time I ever really watched any of The Bachelor, and I watched like an episode and I went, oh yeah, she's picking him. It was that obvious to me. And I think that the difference between them is that there was a real connection there. And I think because it was early enough in the show before they manufactured so many things, because so much of that is so manufactured and pick this person so that we can do this, and so it can tick off this person, and so much of reality. It's funny when you talk about reality TV, it's called reality, but how much of it is real and how much of it is, the behind the scenes people manipulating it and in a lot of these competition shows manipulating us, the ones that we vote in. So,
yeah. And I think we've all I think most people probably have gotten wise to the fact that this is reality with that big asterisk mark on the end of it. But you know what? Considering how much, and we've talked about how much they make of these shows, like season 50 of and things like that. Considering how much they make, finding any kind of happiness on a reality show seems like your odds are probably better winning the Powerball.
But you hit on it right there. Is that these reality shows are cheaper for the networks to make.
Mm-hmm.
And because you're not paying contracts of stars and
Right.
and all of that, and so it's just cheaper to make. And so as long as people are watching and they can make it cheap, then it gonna keep rolling out.
Yeah, and what they can do is they can make a bigger bank on that too, because the expenses are lower, and if they get people hooked on it and you get a lot of viewership, you can sell prime advertising for those slots too. And so you make that money off of something like a reality show, and then you can go and spend it on a show where you got some movie star or something in your show.
Absolutely.
Like if we were to move on from reality TV and talk about some of these other shows that are coming out, these big budget A-lister shows. For example, we've got on Apple TV a show with Owen Wilson in it called Stick, which is a kind of a dramedy about a sports dramedy in the vein of Ted Lasso. How popular that was. I'm a huge Ted Lasso fan, so this sounds like a good one to me. I'm definitely going to check this one out.
It's Owen Wilson is I think he's an actor that I would have expected to have seen carrying a TV show a lot sooner than now, because I think he is very well suited for a Ted Lasso-esque kind of show. I think that'll be. I agree with you. I think that'll be a good one and sort of fill the gap until Ted Lasso doesn't come back, whatever they officially decide they're going to do.
Yeah. I think we'll see more Ted Lasso at some point. I think they'd be crazy not to do something, even if it's a spinoff or something. But I know they were even just talking about just going ahead and making a season 4. I think after they had already declared that it was officially over. But
the latest word that I heard is that yes, it's a go.
Yeah.
But there's always such a risk with those things when you make it as final as what they and as touching and everything as what they did is to come back again. But this show with Owen Wilson sounds like that'll be a good whetting of the appetite until they get all that sorted out.
Yeah, definitely. So what are some other big shows that are coming out this summer with some big stars in it? We got some stuff that's coming back that I wasn't sure. I was kind of surprised to hear, for example, that they're making another Dexter series. I don't know if you watched that one at all, but they've made so much Dexter content. They made the series, and then people didn't like how it ended, so they came back a few years later and they made a new season or a new couple seasons, and then and then they seemed to have some finality to it, and then they went back and made a prequel series, and now they're making one called Dexter Resurrection, where he's like come back to life, I guess. And so,
full disclosure, I did not watch Dexter because, serial killers are not my thing. Yeah. However, the very first promo that I saw for this, Dexter Resurrection, which they show nonstop on my streaming when I watch TV Land, they show all the Paramount products. And so I see this all the time. And so the first time I saw it, I was like, no, that guy's dead. I was like, what? Right. Right. Resurrection. And so then I started Googling and I'm like, okay, did I lose my mind here? At some point, you just, Clint, I saw an interview with Clint Eastwood and he said either come up with something new or stay home. And that's almost what I feel like about this is it's like, okay, when do you reach the end of the Dexter content?
Yeah.
It's like, you made the decision to kill the guy,
Right.
You made that decision. Let's stick with that.
Well, anyone who's, spoilers and everything, you can't call it a spoiler because the show's title spoils the whole thing. But if you haven't seen Dexter, so basically what they did the first time they ended the series, people didn't like it because there was no finality to it, because he washed up on a beach basically somewhere after like the storm, like sailing into this storm after this big kind of culminating like discovery and everything in the end. And then he washes up somewhere and decides to become a lumberjack. And it was just kind of like ridiculed and everything. And so then like a few years later, they're like, okay, we'll bring it back. And this time we'll kill him so that, people won't make fun of us or anything anymore. He won't be a lumberjack anymore. his son comes into the picture, re-enters the picture as an older person and finds him, and his son ends up killing him at the end of that series. And then they're like, okay, well, people really like this, and we killed him, so let's make a prequel series where he's a younger man, cast a younger actor. And then I guess people still haven't had enough of it. So like, you know what? Maybe he survived that thing, where it looked like his son killed him. They're never going to let this Michael Hall guy stop playing this character, Dexter. He's just kind of stuck in it.
Well, I think he's become part of the driving force that keeps bringing it back. I think he's an executive producer now. And so I get, maybe this is obviously it's a character he enjoys playing, or he wouldn't keep doing it. And so he's like, all right, let's keep that. You'd think as an actor, you'd want to explore other things, but maybe he enjoys being a serial killer. I don't know.
It's intriguing. I haven't seen the young version yet, but I did watch the other two series, and I was going to catch up on this young version of him, and then I saw they're making another one. So I don't know. I don't even know. I like it. I think he's good in that role. I think it's an interesting show. But I said that thing about not letting him stop playing this role because it just makes too much money apparently. But I heard the same thing about Kathy Bates in the Matlock, because she says she's retiring after this Matlock season or series, and I heard somebody say, well, they're just never going to let her stop playing this character then.
That's probably because then she had to come back on that a little bit and be like, no, I love this show and I love this character, and she's really getting a moment too. So I think she'll hang around for a while.
Yeah. So some other shows that are kind of coming back after being gone for a little bit. One that my kids really enjoyed, and I have to say we enjoyed as well, watching with our kids growing up. Phineas and Ferb is coming back to Disney after 10 years being gone. That's like the penultimate summer show, because the whole thing's about these kids doing crazy stuff during the summer. So I kind of love that that's coming back.
I think that's amazing that Phineas and Ferb is coming back. Disney Plus does such a great job of revisiting these things. X-Men '97 was epic beyond belief. Sort of tapping into that, that nostalgia and so forth after a number of years. So I wasn't a Phineas and Ferb watcher, but I think that's tremendous that to introduce that to a whole new generation of people.
Yeah. What do you think, Chris? Phineas and Ferb? I'm gonna start watching that.
Yeah, I'm excited because Phineas and Ferb is one of those ones you can watch the reruns over and over.
Yeah.
And it's fine, and it's good for all ages. So I agree. That'll be nice to introduce it to a new generation and all ages.
It's inventive. It's so well written. It's it features characters that are rounded and that have personalities and things that aren't just characters on a page. They pop off. I really like that show. I think it's really well done. I'm glad to see they're making more of that. They're also making more King of the Hill. Did you see that, Angela? Like they've got an adult Bobby Hill cast. He's like a chef. He's a working man, and apparently the Hills have his parents, Peggy and Hank, are back in town after some sort of semi-retirement, and the town has changed a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting. I did read that apparently at one point Dale was the mayor, and that's hysterical to me. So, I mean, honestly, it'll be interesting because, so much has changed, I think, in the landscape and in the comedy landscape and, and what we find humorous these days. And so it'll be really interesting to see where King of the Hill goes. But I mean, I was a fan, it was just silly entertainment, it was just, it wasn't anything that you had to really think about or anything like that. It was just silly fun. So that will be an interesting one.
That's one that I don't have cable anymore, but if I remember for the longest time, if I was just flipping through and a rerun of that was on, I'd end up watching it. It's just that kind of show. You could just pick it up anywhere, and it was just always funny.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see they're making more of that. I'm going to have to catch that when it comes out too. And then this one's not been gone nearly as long as some of those other ones, but we're getting a new season of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I guess that's been on a hiatus for a couple of years now. And I cannot believe that Danny DeVito is still in that show. I think it's hilarious that he is. He is so funny in it. Like, he plays like like, it's funny if you go back and watch it, because in the beginning, he was sort of a regular person, right? And then he kind of like broke as a character in that show. It just became this kind of trash bag of a human, and it's just like it's really funny. But it's funny to see like these characters like continue to get into to outrageous like situations that they bumble their way through and degrade even further and further. It's kind of the opposite of Seinfeld in a way, because Seinfeld ended with sort of like, in a controversial way, like some consequences for their actions, but it doesn't seem like the Sunny crew's ever really going to face any real consequences for all the crazy stuff that they do, and it's a far more despicable world than Seinfeld ever played in.
Well, and what's really fascinating about that show is the fact that because there was such this long hiatus, is that the stars of that show have been able to branch out and do other things. Caitlin Olsen, she was in High Potential, which was a hit show. It's coming back. You got Rob McElhenney. It's doing all the stuff that he's doing. Charlie Day, and and then they did a crossover with Abbott Elementary, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around. Because those I would never have put those two shows anywhere near the same thing, and so it's like when I read that it had been on hiatus that long, I was like, no, because it seemed like we had still been seeing these people, and it's because they've been filling the gaps with these other projects. But I always love it when actors, they go out. It's almost like bands that they go out and do solo stuff and then they come back. I love it when actors are not afraid to forget where they came from. And it's like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do this thing because I'm an actor and I want to explore other characters and so forth. But I'm going to remember what I'm going to go back to the guy who brought me to the dance, and I'm going to go back to that show. So I think that's awesome.
That is good. Did you watch the Abbott Sunny crossovers?
I did not.
Oh, they were so good though. Oh, you should definitely check that out. Chris and I watched it, and we're huge fans of Abbott anyway. And it somehow it worked. It was really funny, and it was funny too because they had to tone the Sunny crew down somewhat to make them sort of palatable in this Abbott world, which is a much more. I mean, they get a little bit wacky on Abbott sometimes too. They're real people and everything, but it is definitely a different side of Philadelphia that they are in. So they had to somewhat tone it down for this network comedy. And I've heard that they're going to try to do the opposite too, and maybe have the Abbott crew show up in some Sunny episodes, which would be crazy to see. And if they were to somehow like, instead of toning down, kind of go a little further out on the limb, and do something that's more in a Sunny style on that show, I think that would be really interesting to see.
I think that cast would have a ball doing that. I mean, so. You can see Cheryl Lee Ralph and Lisa Walter just bringing it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That cast is incredible. They're so good. Both the shows are just incredible at what they do. What else is on this list that you guys want to talk about? Anything else that's really jumping out at you? We talked a little bit about Squid Game Season 3. I can't talk about that too much because as I said, I'm woefully behind, and I think I've watched one episode of Season 2 of that. But The Bear is coming back this summer for Season 4, so I'm excited about that one. I wasn't super satisfied with Season 3 of that one, so I'm hoping that We get.
I've heard that from a lot of people that people were disappointed with season 3 of The Bear.
Season 2 was fantastic, and then I just thought season 3 there were some things that there were definitely some kind of loose threads that we didn't get tied up in season 2 that I thought we should have. So I'm hoping that we get some closure on a few things in season 4 of The Bear.
We should probably mention that Wednesday will be returning in the summer.
Oh yes.
As opposed, it's a 2-part thing, but as opposed to getting like a Halloween thing. And what's interesting about this season of Wednesday is the guest stars that are going to be making appearances. So you've got Catherine Zeta-Jones as Morticia. I believe I'm getting that correct. And the big news that came out this week when Netflix debuted the trailer, yes, Lady Gaga is making an appearance in Wednesday.
That's
okay.
Awesome.
That's funny.
Which I think everybody had pretty much willed after the whole thing went viral with Wednesday dancing and they people matched it to the Lady Gaga song and to Bloody Mary and so forth. So yeah, it seemed like a natural fit. So yes, apparently Lady Gaga is making a cameo.
That's cool.
At some point in Wednesday. So
is it just a cameo, you think, or does she come in and play in a real character or anything?
That I honestly have no idea. I mean I think she should play a real character. I mean she's a solid actress, and so I think that would be fun. I think watching her and Jenna Ortega would be fun.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting. And she seems to have like taken to acting pretty voraciously. I would say she's enjoying, I think, her acting stint. And I wondered, are you a big Lady Gaga fan, Angela?
I am.
Do you think that it was a mistake for her to divert her attention to acting so much that it seems like she lost a little bit of the fire with her musical career? It seems like while she was out acting in some of these movies, like maybe that's when Taylor Swift kind of really took over.
I think that this last her last album that she came out with has really gone gangbusters. So I agree with you. She did kind of lose her throne or whatever that you want to say, but she strikes me as a person who doesn't really worry about that. You know what I mean? It's for the art. We can argue whether Joker part 2 was the way to go there, but she's really, she's about the art and about the performance, and whether that's acting or whether that's, through music or so forth, I think. But yeah, you're right. I think she lost a little traction, but I think she'll always, she'll always get that. The secret to getting it back is to put out good music, and she's done that.
Yeah. What do you think, Chris? Lady Gaga, Taylor Swift?
Well, it's funny because I learned from like Anna that there's other. Oh my gosh, I just forgotten her name. Is it Sabrina Carpenter? Is that who it is? There's other people that have been rising up, really making it really big.
Yeah.
So
but not to the extent. I just think that like Lady Gaga went off and acted for a little bit. This is my perspective. She went off and she did some acting projects.
I don't think
and at the same time. No, but at the same time, Taylor Swift was like, everybody was talking about how Taylor Swift was the sole like thing, like driving the economy for a long time because her concerts were such an economic boost. She was like selling tickets, like these shows were huge productions and everything. And then she put out a concert movie and and there was this whole big thing. And then it seemed like Lady Gaga kind of came in and had to catch up a little bit. Like she was trying to do like a big tour, but it wasn't getting the same sort of buzz as like the Taylor Swift Eras tour was. And then she tried to do a concert movie and there wasn't as much buzz around it. It seemed like to me, like she might have lost just a little bit of footing. It seemed like to me.
Do they have different audiences?
That's a good question.
So I would say yes. I think that there's some crossover, but the way you could do a whole podcast episode just on the marketing machine that is Taylor Swift. Just she's amazing, and I whether you're a fan of her music, you have to respect what she's done, and again, like I said, Lady Gaga's more about the art and the I'll don the makeup and dance with Joaquin Phoenix and do whatever. And Christy, you really got to get on the Sabrina Carpenter train.
Yes, I'm just learning all of it. And to me, I feel like she's like, well, I don't know how big she is compared to Taylor Swift, but what Anna has told me, yeah, she, like with the marketing, like you were saying, and her staging and like everything that she does, all the work, she works really, really hard. And I think she's maybe quietly a big star, or maybe to my generation, because I still think of her as like a little Disney star. So I'm like, wow, she's big. Like she almost seems like not as big as Taylor Swift, but wow, yeah, she's really big. She does a lot of work.
Well, and Taylor Swift kind of helped make that happen because she did open for her on the. But you hit the nail right on the head. Is that she worked? I mean, people think that she came out of nowhere. No, she didn't. Like you said, she started out Disney. I first saw her in, Girl Meets World. She was, she was amazing in that. She did that remake of Adventures in Babysitting. They shouldn't have remade that, but she was great. Right. She was great in it. Yeah. And, and then she, and she's really just, I mean, she's put out a bunch of albums, and people are just now going back and discovering those. But you're right, the staging and the whole sort of the bombshell thing that she's doing now, it's really starting to put her on the map.
Yeah, it's interesting. But to me, maybe because I'm older, I just always like Lady Gaga. Like you just can't compare. It's almost like Madonna. I'm just, I don't know, maybe just the age. I'm like Madonna, Lady Gaga, they are up there. You just can't, compare.
I think that's a really good comparison to Lady Gaga and Madonna because of the just the reinvention. Madonna was the master of reinvention, and each album was different. She had all these different personas. I mean, remember Lady Gaga's the one who put on the dress made of meat.
Yeah,
that's right.
And then the next thing you know, she's an Academy Award winner, and it's like, what happened here?
Yeah.
Right.
Because of that.
Yeah, she was a shock entertainer. She was a shock entertainer there for a little bit. It's like she was trying to get publicity sometimes for doing some of those types of stunts, I think, on red carpets and things like that. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And and to bring it back to TV is that I was stunned. I don't know why I was stunned, but I was stunned that that during March Madness, the music that you heard going in and out of commercials, it was Lady Gaga, Abracadabra. And I was like, okay, I never would have thought, we would have associated March Madness with, we would have, signed on with, and not only were they playing the music, they were showing the clips from her video. Oh. And so it was like, and so you saw all of her dancers and all that in between clips of the the college basketball players, and it was like, wow, this is this is a real synergy moment that didn't seem like her thing. But I thought it was cool, but
well, both Taylor Swift, Lady Gaga, Sabrina Carpenter, all very, very talented. I think it was interesting. We started on this because you said that Lady Gaga is potentially going to have a cameo and potentially a role in Wednesday, which I think is really interesting. I have to say too, though, that every once in a while, like I was off social media for the longest time, but now as I scroll, I got back on social media in part to promote this podcast. And so I scroll through some stuff now, and I see every once in a while, rumors or casting rumors and things. And the problem I have with that kind of thing is you never know what people are just making up just to get views and clicks, or, to get you to pause on something. And there's just so much stuff out there that's fake. But I see like Taylor Swift rumors all the time about, her being cast or potentially being cast in some project. And it sounds like, if you listen to that kind of sort of thing, or if you pay any heed to it, like she might be in a Marvel movie or a DC movie coming up. She might be a superhero at some point. There's a rumor about that. It says that she's she might be doing a remake of The Bodyguard, Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner's movie, The Bodyguard. She might be. There's a rumor that she's going to remake The Bodyguard, so we might be seeing her in some stuff as well. There's a rumor that she might show up in the Handmaid's Tale. I just looked up Taylor Swift acting role rumors for 2025. It's just kind of all over the place.
So that rumor about the Handmaid's Tale, because you know that Look What You Made Me Do, Taylor's version, actually appeared in the Handmaid's Tale finale. Okay. And so that set off a whole thing. It set off the rumors that you're talking about, is that, you know, she was in it somewhere, that, you know, we just didn't see her. It's kind of like all those people that played stormtroopers in the new Star Wars movies, that, you know, she was in it, we didn't notice her. You know, and then it set off this thing about, oh, she's getting ready to release Reputation, and of course that turned out not to be true. And, you know, that's the thing about, you know, I mean, there is a whole science around trying to figure out all the Taylor Swift Easter eggs. And what I find so funny this last time is there were no Easter eggs. People were seeing things that weren't there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But you're right. There, you know, there's all the, you know, rumors and so forth. And, you know, and the Lady Gaga and Wednesday rumor had been going, you know, ever since that video went viral. But, you know, when Netflix releases the trailer and you see Lady Gaga, it's like, okay, that might be real.
Yeah, very interesting. Oh, wow. And we keep getting more content too. Just to mention that Taylor Swift is maybe circling or being circled for a superhero role. So we're still seeing more of the Marvel DC stuff coming out on the streaming service on Disney Plus and things like that. Though I think I read an article too that said the studio execs are going to maybe cut back on that a little bit. But one we have coming out this summer is Ironheart, which is a spinoff of Iron Man. I mean, of course, there's a whole cartoon or a whole comic book series around this character, and we did see this character introduced in the second and the last Black Panther movie, Wakanda Forever. Is this? I know, Angela, you are a bit of a comic book nerd sometimes. Is this a character you're familiar with?
It isn't. But you know, you are right. They have said that, you know, we're going to start cutting back. I think that because I think there was getting to be, you know, we said, you know, 35 shows you can't miss during the summer. Right. It's like, who could keep track of all of the universe and the, you know, the Marvel universe and the Star Wars universe and the so forth. But the whole Disney thing with the Marvel series and the Star Wars series, it's very interesting. I think you're going to see them be much more selective. And so obviously this one is one that they thought, you know, passed the mustard, you know, so to speak. But, you know, they've already started, Star Wars series that they had announced, Marvel series that they had announced. They're like, oh, okay, no, never mind. We're not doing that. You know, I mentioned X-Men 97. It's been delayed until Lord knows when to come back, you know, season 2. I think you're going to see, and I would say that part of that is reflected in the fact that the movies are not doing well at the box office.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's gonna carry over. I did read a synopsis of this one, and it sounds like a really interesting story that, you know, sort of ties back to Black Panther and some other characters. And so, yeah, so I think, you know, whether it succeeds may, you know, determine how many more we see in the future.
Yeah. I think they're making really good stuff on TV. I mean, I think it's fine. Like I said, they're already making too much stuff that I can't keep up with. So maybe slowing down a little bit, I'm okay with. But I really hope they don't stop making these shows, because they're making some really excellent content, and they're putting, they're putting some big money into some of these shows, and you can really tell in terms of, you know, the casting that they're getting and the effects. Really amazing stuff coming out on TV and streaming series. And so I don't think that's going to go away completely, even if they do slow down a little bit. And maybe that's okay. Like I said, let us catch up.
Yeah, just stop the world from turning, just so we can catch up on these things, and then you can start spinning again.
One more I want to mention here is just on that same topic of just big budget television. They're making an Alien TV series based on the original, the Ridley Scott films. And I would expect that to have some budget attached to it. It's got one of my favorite actors in it. Timothy Olyphant is in it. It's called Alien Earth, and it's coming out on FX this August.
See, I think that makes sense. It's like, that's a whole world that, I mean, we talk about, Hollywood not having any new ideas, but that's a whole world there. I mean, there was more than a few aliens. There's more aliens out there.
Right.
So, why not give them their own show? And Timothy Olyphant is fantastic. And now I will admit full-heartedly, I won't be watching it because aliens creep me out.
Yeah.
Because this won't be like the friendly little ET aliens. These aliens will be scary.
This isn't Lilo and Stitch alien.
Yeah. This will be people shooting out of people's stomachs, and that's
the kind of alien we're talking about here. Yeah.
I did watch V in the day, but that's about it. That's about as scary alien as I get. Watch both versions of that.
I watched that. I
was a big fan.
Yeah, me too. That was some good TV then. And they did a remake of it, and I admit I didn't watch all of the remake, but I watched.
It was good.
Yeah,
it was good. Unfortunately, canceled way too soon. So
it's another one of those things I just couldn't stay. It's just so much other stuff coming out.
I know.
If we would just stop for a minute, maybe I could go back and watch it. Just stop making good stuff.
Well, when you talk to the people about, giving you your spring and fall back, talk to them about pausing everything so that you can catch up.
Just pause for a little bit. That's the main theme here. That's the main message that we have for people, the TV makers and the content makers, the movie makers. Just slow down just a little bit. Give us a chance to catch up. There's just so much stuff out there. This has been really fun talking to you guys about TV. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we wrap up here?
We need to have it to be continued, because did you have a list of like 30 or 35 shows or something?
I kind of cherry picked it a little bit.
Okay,
but yeah,
so I wasn't sure if we were going to go through the list and do like a thumbs up, thumbs down.
Oh, I sort of cherry picked it. we could do another episode of this where we talk about some more of these, but I think we talked about some of the bigger ones.
You'll need to share your list with us. I don't think I saw it.
Yeah, so
that'll be interesting to
I will drop this list on our Instagram page too when I drop this episode, so that people can get a look at what we're talking about here. So that'll be, if you check out our Instagram page at Every.Thing.After photo, and you'll see that when this episode drops. But thanks, you guys, for talking about this summer TV. It's been great catching up and reminiscing and sort of having a bit of a gripe session in some respects.
And back in the day, I love back
commiserating,
in the day
just being old fogies together. Yes. That's what we do. All right, guys, I think that'll wrap it up for us this time. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Check us out on Instagram. Go back and look and listen to some of our previous episodes. We're starting to get on a regular cadence with this. We'll get into a better routine, but we appreciate you listening to us, and play us out right now.
I still love with a vengeance the idea that I could be the one to change. And every spell I said to reanimate the dead could somehow all now be neatly tucked away. But I don't mind tonight. The alignment is right.
Hey, ETAers, thanks for listening to our podcast, and thanks to my friend Scott Paris for the use of his song Knee Jerks as our theme song. Every.Thing.After is the podcast where we ask the question, what's your ETA? An ETA, or an Every.Thing.After, can be anything you're doing to create and be creative, after doing something else for a while, or after and amid the crazy times we're all living in. It's connecting with other creative people and sharing passions and pursuits. Part of that is having conversations with bands, musicians, artists, and other creatives, and you'll find those episodes out weekly on Wednesdays. Part of that is having knee-jerk reactions to music, movies, and shows, and we do that on this show, which we call Knee Jerks, an ETA podcast. Those episodes drop Fridays and Saturdays on our podcast channels. If you'd like to get more involved in our ETA community, you'll find us on Instagram by searching for Every.Thing.After Photo. There you'll find concert photography, reviews, and clips from our latest podcast episodes. And there you can answer our question, what's your ETA? And maybe be a guest on a future episode. Thanks again. Until the next thing.
I'm Rudy.
Rick.
I'm Dave.
And we're Wolverine.
From Chicago, and our Everything After is our new EP, Fall With You, out June 17th.
Record release show, June 20th, Live Wire Lounge, Chicago.
Dave, you got anything?
Chicago rock and roll.